Hello, everyone. Welcome to the El Paso Filmmaker panel. My name is Carlos Corral. I'm the artistic director of the El Paso Film Festival. And today we have a special treat for you. We have several filmmakers here from the city of El Paso who have all done feature films in the city and have otherwise called El Paso home when it comes to creating their films. So I want to go ahead and introduce today's panel. Let me see. We got Chris Jones. We've got James Arrabito, we've got Anthony Salgado, and of course, Robert Holguin, KFox14, and also a feature filmmaker, if you did not know. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to you guys. Just kind of tell us about yourselves. And yeah, tell us a little bit about your movie that's currently playing at the El Paso Film Festival. Chris, we'll start with you. I'll start there.
Okay. Sure. Thanks, man. Well, first of all, congrats to James and Anthony. I haven't seen the films yet, but I will. And I think, it's, again, it's awesome to see that there's more and more filmmakers here in El Paso. I think I'm one of the ancient ones. I've been here for a while, been doing what I'm doing for a while. Just completed my film, Save Me, and I'm really hoping that everyone's enjoying it. Save Me is pretty much a feature about domestic violence awareness. I'm a big superhero fan, obviously, Superman everywhere. And so I try to, making movies, I'm not really big into special effects, nothing like that. So I wanted to create something that was as close to a hero story as I can get without having to do that. So I'm a big fan of the action movies, 80s and 90s. So I'm hoping that when you see it, that's kind of the feel that you get. Save Me's took me about 4 years to make. And most of the time I'm a one-man show. I did have a lot of help, especially when it comes to the scenes that I'm in. Acting is really the reason I love doing all this stuff. So it was fun, and I'm really grateful to everyone that helped me.
Great. And James, how about you?
Hey, Carlos, how's it going? I also just want to say congratulations to everybody and their films. It's as we all know, it's a tough journey to complete a feature film, and we all did it, and we completed and got in the festival. So congratulations to all of us. I'm originally born and raised in El Paso, Texas. I did study film in New York City at Brooklyn College. I worked there for a few years before starting my first feature film there. And I shot most of that in Brooklyn. And then the last act, I decided to come back to El Paso, where the lead actor is also from, one of my good friends, and had a really good experience making film here. Everyone was very receptive. It was very chill. We didn't have to get permits, all that sort of stuff. And when I moved back to El Paso, it took a few years to kind of meet some filmmakers and things of that nature to get this film, I See a Darkness, which is currently playing at this year's festival. That was about a 3-year process from 2017, from inception of screenplay to now.
Yeah, and yeah, if anybody's watching, feature films do take a while to write, create, shoot, and edit, of course. So Anthony, tell us a little bit about yourself and your film.
Hi, my name is Anthony Salgado. I'm the director of Cut the Tech. And again, congrats to everyone and their feature films. My background, I graduated from UTEP, the digital media production. So shout out to the DM crew, you guys are out there, the digital media production. But basically, my film, Cut the Tech, it's more like an art film. And so I wanted to do the whole art approach. And I know a lot of filmmakers don't do that here. So it was kind of like risky for me. But I just did it anyways because I like that genre of films. And, again, going more on my background, I've done short films. I've produced short films for local filmmakers here. Again, this is my second feature film. My first feature film was Paranoid Flux, and I did a documentary called Rivals where I followed a bunch of racers, and so that's basically it. So
Yeah, great. And then, of course, we have our very own Robert Holguin on this panel. He, too, has a film in the festival called Neighbor of the Year. But part of the reason he's also with us on this El Paso Filmmaker panel is because he, too, has made feature films, but he did them before any of us, and he did them on 16 millimeters. So, Robert, tell us about yourself and your journey, your hero's journey of how you became a filmmaker.
Carlos, is that your way of trying to telegraph the fact that I'm an old man and that the
No,
oldest person in the panel?
it's my way to telegraph that you are wise. You are the wise man in this group.
Okay. I guess my gray hair can attest to that. Yeah, listen, I'm here really to kind of facilitate and help with this panel and to get some questions asked that I find come to mind when I think of filmmaking, especially when it comes to filmmaking in the border. Along the border here. Yes, I did make a couple of feature films in my 20s. I shot them on 16 millimeter on an Arriflex, and it was a painful, difficult experience that, in fact, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking off mic, that that process was so difficult and, in fact, kind of heartbreaking in a lot of respects because of how expensive it was, because of a lot of the sacrifices you'd have to make in terms of compromises, that I actually stopped making films for a very long time. Almost 2 decades. And this short that is in the El Paso Film Festival that I'm really happy to have in the festival to be alongside such great films created by some of the people on this panel. That short film is the first one I've made in 20 years. It's the first narrative that I've made. I've made some music videos, but that's the first narrative I've made. And so I'm just excited to explore some of the new technology that's available that, again, has changed dramatically since I dabbled in this. But again, primarily, I'm here to facilitate. I'm here to get to know more about our local filmmakers that are featured in this panel. And I'm also here to congratulate you, Carlos, because of the branding in your shot, which I find remarkable. I think I see a coffee cup. I see a Post-it note, not to mention the T-shirt. So well done.
Thank you. But yeah, if you want, Robert, go ahead and kick it off with asking the panel questions. And I'm glad to hear that you have rediscovered your roots as a filmmaker, because feature films can be very, very time intensive. Blood, sweat, and tears goes into them. So yeah, I mean, I want to kick it off to you. And what kind of questions do you have for El Paso filmmakers who are thinking about doing feature films, or our panel here who have done, I believe you guys have all done 2 feature films here, so including you, Robert. So yeah, the resources are here in the city. So take it away.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll just ask along the lines that we've been talking about here, which is how difficult a process it can be. Just because using digital video is cheaper than 16 millimeter film, it doesn't mean that it's any less of a challenge. So I'd like to go around the room with the filmmakers here and just begin with a pretty basic question, which is, what is it that you find keeps you going in what can be a years-long process, right? Like there may be many times when you feel like abandoning the project because it takes so long to get off the ground and to the finish line. So we'll go around the room. We'll start with Chris, I suppose, because he's got the Superman T-shirt, and we will talk about just tell us what keeps you going when other times you might want to quit. I guess for me, I've never wanted to quit. As a kid, that's what always inspired me, was having movies and having TV shows, and going back to the old He-Man, Masters of the Universe cartoons. I mean, that's pretty much where it started for me. And it just, whenever as kids, you're always playing and you're playing make believe, and you're always wanting to be your heroes. That's kind of when it all started for me. So I never really, that obviously has carried on. And I grew up in the 80s, so we had, Stallone and Schwarzenegger and all those guys. And so I just, I don't know, I just felt like there was no finish line. It was going to go on forever. And, to see those guys now, I mean, they're in their 60s, 70s, and they're still doing movies. I mean, that's, it just makes me want to be 80 and still, see if I can throw a punch or a kick or something, And, but, as far as the process itself, I think the learning part of it is what keeps me going. There's always something to learn. It doesn't matter how many projects you've done or what equipment you have or what your editing software is. As long as you're engaged and you have something that you enjoy doing, it's never boring. It's never ending. That's what kind of keeps you going. And you have to find a way to keep learning. And I think that would be my biggest, message or advice is just, when you can find something that you like and when you take that process and you're learning, you can kind of take that mentality and use it in everything that you do. And to me, that's what keeps you going. It's just the learning part of it. Anthony, do you feel the same way?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's like it's a journey, and you know, in my mind, it's like I need to complete it. You know, growing up very young, I started things, and I would just kind of give up, and you know, to the point where you know, my brother-in-law, he's like, "Oh, you give up on a lot of things," and so you know, when I made my first short film, which it's hidden, no one will see it, but I completed it. I ran it through the process, and I just loved the whole process of it. And I never gave up on that project. And so I figured, hey, maybe I could do another one, and I made another one. And so I guess I found one thing that I did not give up on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. James, fill us in on your, you know, your road to perseverance when it comes to this. And it's interesting to hear that, you know, in some cases there was no doubt, but there are times when, you know, you do kind of feel like you're up against some insurmountable odds when you're trying to put together a feature, again, a feature. So just your thoughts on that, James.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess to go back to the inception of it, it's of like an idea or whatever. It's almost, it's weird. It's hard to say that like I think of it as filmmaking as like, oh, I need to make this into a film, but I sort of become just obsessed with exploring something, whether it's a character, an emotion. It's usually just like a scene that's in the movie that really inspires you to keep going. And I kind of know it's weird. It's hard to describe, but it's sort of a feeling where it's just like I cannot rest until this is done, until this is made. I need to get this out because it's weird. It's like a compulsion. It's not like I need to get it out to make money or I need to get it out to this. It's like I need to get this out there because it's therapeutic for me in a way, or I've explored something like that. And it is very, very difficult when you're doing that. You know, there's so many obstacles where you're just like, oh my God, how am I going to get this done? Okay, we have this, we've lost money, we lost this actor, we need this now, we don't have this permit. Oh my God, I have to rewrite this scene. You know, all of these things where it's so easy just to be like, oh, okay, I'll just give this up, no problem. But actually following through, I think what helps me is it's that compulsion. It's like that need to finish this thing, yeah, there's no stopping that. So it's a tough journey, and you have to go through it for years. And one of the things that I also recommend too is if you're thinking about doing a film is setting a date, like, because it's arbitrary, right? It's like people ask me like, oh, how come you decided to shoot this month in 2018 was when we shot, and I was just like, well, just because I had to set a date, or like I was just gonna, you know, you're gonna keep postponing it if you don't. You set that date, it's like, okay, it's done, it's set in stone, we have to do this. That's another thing.
Yeah, that's good advice, right? You give yourself kind of some boundaries in terms of trying to achieve what you're trying to get done. And if you have the added benefit of being compulsive about it, I guess that would probably only add fuel to the fire, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I can add something to that, is that, you know, I think that, you know, what people, especially now during quarantine, you know, there's a lot of people that are, you know, struggling and hurting, and especially when it comes to the finances. And you know, when you're starting out and you have an idea, and, you know, money is always a thing that people think that's going to either make or break your production, or you can't do this, can't do that. And believe me, I think that what people really need to understand is that, especially during these times, if you just kind of like what James said, if you have an idea, you know, if you're just, you know, whether you write something down on a paper, if you're rehearsing something in the mirror, if you're just out looking for location, you know, take a little drive around, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, anything will help contribute to that project. Like, don't, you know, if you can't get a specific location, or you can't, obviously, you know, like, for example, you can't have a big crowd right now, that's okay. You know, focus on other parts of your story or on other parts of your production, and try to, you know, make those the best that they can be. In the meantime, you know, there should always be something that you can work on to make either yourself better or the production better. And it will be that much better when you get to that other part, or the part that you didn't finish. So eventually it will get done. It's patience that will really make your project or your talent, you know, sing.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Do you have anything to add on that, Carlos?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel that the other thing about feature films is that once you start, the momentum keeps going, and it's kind of like, you know, you're running a race and you don't want to stop mid-race. It's like, no, I have to get to the finish line. So, and I feel that that's what's very different from, you know, when with every other productions, especially because it takes such a long time, for you to write your story, plan it. But then eventually, like James said, you eventually have to set a date and say, okay, it is where it is. I just need to start filming, and then I'll start adapting from there. And then, of course, the other hard part, once you get to the end of the production finish line, you're like, okay, it's in the can. I'm done. You really sometimes, and this has happened to me with my features. Like after I did that, I didn't look at it for like a month or two. I was just so like, I just need a break from this movie. But then you go back, several weeks later, and then you start looking, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot we did this. And then everything else, so that's also the thing too, is that you film a movie 3 times. First when you write it and you're planning it, then when you actually film it with your actors and crew, and then when you're putting it together in post-production, post-production is I think one of the scariest parts, because that's also where you start to see mistakes that you probably missed, or you were so consumed with something else on production that you didn't realize, like, oh my God, I forgot to do this, or, oh, you can see something here in the shot. But I think that's part of the magic. Because again, it's a form of art that, it sometimes can't be perfect, but that's the reason I love independent filmmaking. And I think, I'm sure you guys all have similar stories. Once you get your film in post-production, you were like, is this what we filmed? Or like, but sometimes it can be exciting too. How do you feel that way, Robert? With, like you said, with Neighbor of the Year, was it when you started editing it together was like, oh, this is the movie I filmed here, or do I want to change it up a little bit? How was it for you?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I think what you're talking about is really important, because for me, post-production is my favorite part. I love post-production. A lot of that has to do with the fact that's when you're finally in something of a controlled setting, right? So writing is always very difficult because you're in your own head, and then production is grueling, and then post-production is finally, for me, where it starts to breathe, right? Where it starts to take shape. And so I've always been a fan of post-production in any kind of, whether it's filmmaking or even in TV production. So I think what's interesting is what an editor can do to save a scene or to create a moment. That's a really special thing, and I'm a big fan of it. But more importantly, to one of your original points, Carlos, and we can go around the room and talk about this a little bit. There's nothing that's going to make you better than doing it more often. So, one thing that I learned in the editing room is how to be a better shooter and how to get better coverage, because you understand about the mistakes. Once you get in that room and you've got yourself into a corner and you can't cut your way out, there's nothing that makes you a better shooter or director, I think, than getting really good at making mistakes. So I'd like to get everyone's opinions about that. And again, we'll just kind of maintain our order and start with you, Chris.
Okay. Are we talking again just kind of post-production or that part of it?
Yeah, about like, and also about how important it is to get reps, right? To do it.
Yes.
In other words, not get caught up in analysis paralysis, which is, something that can be very prevalent, but just about getting better by doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I totally agree with you on. That's actually my favorite part is the editing process, post-production, because it's the one time where you as an artist can actually be and think and dream, alone, and kind of go back to square one to what your original project or idea was. And when you start piecing that together, it's almost, for me, it's, I'm really, I feel like in a lot of ways you kind of live in the movie at that point. And it's, it's a really cool process for me. And I'm kind of a big homebody already. So, because I'm out there shooting and doing all that kind of stuff, it's, I get a lot of that social, environment. So it's like, I just can't wait to get home and see what we did and look at it in that way, because it is a different world, and I think that, one big lesson that I learned, in this one was a lot of the times I was shooting while I was editing, because I was having to, you want to change something, or you find your mistakes and things like that. But this time around, when Carlos had, contacted me and we were going to submit to the festival and all that kind of stuff, I had a chance, we were done shooting, and obviously I couldn't really do a lot of shooting because of the pandemic, and to just be in that setting. I mean, it was actually very, therapeutic, you know what I mean? Because you kind of get to, it's almost like you reflect and you remind yourself why you shot that scene or why it was done this way, or, it's just an overall process, man. But I think as a filmmaker, if you are the editor, I always say, kind of trust your first instinct, because that's usually what started the process in the first place.
Anthony?
I think for me, my process is a bit different. I know with Paranoid Flux, for me, I storyboard all my films, like from every scene, every shot. So when I did Flux, I always like shooting double multicam system. I know Carlos, that's the first time I was like, I'm gonna use a wide and an 85, and he's like, well, I'm gonna come out in this angle, this camera, and I'm like, oh, that opened up my mind. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was a good learning experience. But for me, it's again, I storyboard it, and when I go into the editing room, it's just filling in the slots. And
right on.
For me, sometimes that second camera saves me because maybe the wide shot doesn't work, or someone comes out in it, or the boom, or a shadow, or something, or a script on the floor, and I'm like, oh, I have the close up. Let me use that. So I think for me, I'm not trying to say that I'm very meticulous in what I want, but I think as I did my short films, and then I realized, you know what, I need to be more faster on the set. And I think in terms of a producer, I'm just trying to get that shot and within the time, but at the same time trying to get that meaning and element in the scene. So that's just my process.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Everyone's got a different process, definitely. I find it interesting that you describe post-production as filling out the slots that you'd already created. I mean, that is really, that's a very disciplined way of making a movie, to be sure. James, how do you approach it?
So really, I try not to, I really like all aspects of it, actually. Like, I love writing. I'm like in love with that process when I'm doing it. And also, like, as being a filmmaker, a lot of us starting off don't have a lot of money. Writing is free, paper is free, or, you just, keep going and create as many stories as you want. Then the actual production I love. I mean, that's just like, that's where the energy comes in. That's where the instinctual process comes in. So you're creating these moments that you're trying to recreate from the script. But that's where it takes a step further, because all of a sudden you have actors, you have the cinematographer you're working with. You have all of these artistic concepts that are being brought to you, and you have to synthesize those and sort of just instinctually have a decision and be like, yeah, this is the right thing that I'm trying to do. This hits the mood, this hits the tone, let's do this. And you get all these really wonderful surprises during production when that happens. And then, of course, when you get to post-production, you're like, okay, cool. So now you get to intellectualize the whole thing. Your instincts, basically, you sit down, it's comfortable, hopefully, and you're working with an editor, or you're editing yourself or whatever, and you're bouncing off of each other, and you're creating this whole new thing. And as far as the experiences go between like the two different features, it was night and day. So when we made Brooklyn Unemployed, the whole idea to make this thing was, okay, well, I want to hang out with my good friend who's the lead, and I want to see if I can make a feature. And so let's just kind of do this, right? And it's like you're shooting all of this stuff, and you're like, oh my God, I need to pick this up, or I need to do this insert, like stuff that I didn't realize that you needed to do in the short film, because short film is super, super concise. All these segues, all this other stuff to kind of augment the moment you're creating with your characters. And for Brooklyn Unemployed, we just had like an outline, a basic sort of, okay, well, this is going to happen here, this is going to happen there. And the actors just kind of improvised to that point. So it was exciting every day, because you had no idea exactly what they were going to say, what they were going to do. But the general outline was there. For I See a Darkness, it was tried to be a little bit more rigid. Like, okay, well, we're breaking this down. There's a script there. We actually had a crew, so everyone's working together. It wasn't just like 3 or 4 people. So yeah, that whole story process there was a lot more rigid, but there's still a lot of room for discoveries and a lot of room for collaboration, which is kind of cool. And the editing process for both of those are pretty much the same. They're discoveries, you're putting it together. But I know how Anthony said, which is interesting, how he like fills in all the slots, which is great. Like, I wish that is what can happen, but always for me, for some reason in post-production, is it alters and it changes. Like for I See a Darkness, we received the local filmmaker grant from MCAD for the first year that they did it. And their process happened to be, or their deadline happened to be August, right? It was like the end of August and we were shooting in August. And so they needed an assembly like 4 days after we shot. So, there was no rest like Carlos was able to do, and like take like two months off and not look at the film. We had to just like, okay, all right, do this whole assembly, do all of this. And so we did that. And then we did a post-production campaign for Steven Sparks so we can get the funds to hire an editor and work with the post-production team. So that took some rest for post-production. And then by the time we got into actual doing post-production, the whole concept of what I wanted to do with the film changed. So what is in the script is completely different than what you see as the final product of the film. So yeah, Carlos, you're totally right. Like 3 different versions of the film in every aspect. And that's kind of a long-winded way of my post-production process.
Interesting, nonetheless. Carlos, I don't know if you want me to ask another question, or if you want to take something from the chat, or if you want me to just keep going. You tell me what we should do, since this is kind of an informal thing.
Yeah, actually, well, I kind of want to hear a little bit from you, Robert. Tell me, what is post-production like with 16 millimeter film? I think we all want to know that.
Okay, well, it was awful. First of all, I'll tell you what we used to, the worst thing about shooting on film with a micro budget or no budget, what we did is, an Arriflex 16 millimeter camera has a 400-foot spool, right, of film. That is 10 minutes of film. So we would sometimes buy odds and ends because it was cheaper. So you can buy like 150 feet or left on that spool. It'd be cheaper and you'd buy that, but you'd have like 3 minutes of film on there, right? So you're ending up changing film a lot in production. And you guys are probably familiar with this, but in case you're not, what you'd have to do is you had a changing bag. That's this black bag that was light proof. You would stick the film canister in there, and blindly you'd have to get the can of film out, seal it in another can, pull it out, put a new one in, spool it correctly. And it's 115 degrees outside and your sweat is dropping. It was awful. But what we did in post was we had it sent to, it was transferred. This is pre-HD. So, I mean, this is scary. We had it transferred to Beta SP, which was still standard definition. But it was our only way to transfer to video because we couldn't cut on film. We didn't use a flatbed or anything like that. So we had it transferred to Beta SP on a 1 light transfer, so it wasn't color corrected. And then we would cut with that 1 light transfer on Beta. But it wasn't, I think we may have cut deck to deck, like still we were using deck to deck for the rough cut, but then we had an editor, a really talented guy who's gone on to do great things, Eric Anderson, and he cut it on a nonlinear system that was crazy because he had one of the first nonlinear systems. And I think he took out a small business loan of like $30,000 to buy that first nonlinear system. So, I mean, that's how crazy it's been, right? But yeah, the post-production was basically transferred to video. So a can of film would cost you $400, about another $400 to soup it and then transfer it to video. So like $800 for 10 minutes, of footage. So yeah, it was crazy.
No, and I can totally connect with that because about a year ago, a friend of mine, Evan Kaufman, actually came to El Paso and we did a music video, but on 16 millimeter. And it was kind of like a short film, but still just seeing all that, the first AC had to, okay, he has to be very careful how he gets the can out, making sure we don't lose what we shot that day. Yeah, it's a very different experience because you're constantly rehearsing. That's the other thing too, is that and nowadays I would say filmmakers like all of us are spoiled because we can just hit record and okay, yeah, just do it again. Where versus film, it's like, I think we mentioned this in the pre-webinar, but you can just hear the money, as you turn on the as you turn on the camera and you hear the film going. But yeah, and moving on towards that, that's how it was with film, but with you making Neighbor of the Year, did you feel the process was more streamlined? Like, do you feel like maybe you could also do a feature again one day here in El Paso?
I think so. I definitely have. It definitely reawakened something in me. But in making Neighbor of the Year, currently available at the El Paso Film Festival, I think that what I found was, well, for one thing, we had to be very safe because we made it under the COVID circumstances. So we had to be very careful. And it was a micro crew, right? It was nobody but me and the two leads and then a third lead. They were never really in the same room more than about 20 seconds each. And then we kind of shot the dialogue in a way where, we ADR'd a lot of it so that there would actually be no actual, breathing in the room. So we were pretty safe about it. But, and then of course, everyone got tested and all the proper protocols. But I think what it shows me is I'm just so in love with the way the technology can now mimic film. I know it's not truly film, and I know that for many people that's still the gold standard. But I think what's exciting for me is that there are no more barriers in the way for you to achieve your goal as a filmmaker, because you can no longer blame like a lack of access to technology, because I think like it is all pretty much available to everyone now, and production standards and qualities are up to you. And so it's up to you as the filmmaker now. And I think that's an exciting era.
Yeah. And especially now, like one of the things that I always tell filmmakers here at El Paso Film Festival is that we like to focus on the two S's, the story and the sound. We don't really care what camera you use. It could be your iPhone if you want. I actually have seen movies that have been shot on iPhones and have amazing audio. So yeah, that's and if I have not disclosed this yet, I did work on some of these films. I worked on Anthony's movie Cut the Tech, and I did work on James Arrabito's I See a Darkness as well. So just to let you guys know that as well. But yeah, so what sort of what kind of advice can you give to other El Paso filmmakers when it comes to just I use the term fear forward. Part of that is because, like you guys said, sometimes you can get paralyzed. You're like, I don't think I have what it takes. I don't have the right technology. I don't have the right, all these elements. You can always give yourself excuses, but I feel like that's how you learn. You have to fear forward, and that's why, Robert, even though you feel like you didn't have such a great time doing 16 millimeter, but I still think that that probably was the best film school anyone could have ever asked for. So yeah, to all you guys, how do you break that lock of fearing forward with your project?
Do you want to go first?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it, Chris.
Okay, cool, man. No, you know what? I think in today's world, especially, I'm really like when I look back to when I started, I don't have any actual schooling or any kind of formal training, like these guys. And I give kudos to the people who actually, get the training and get the education, because, it's when I started and when I was a kid, I thought making movies was a dream only for Hollywood, only for, students and film schools and things like that. And by luck, I happened to be walking in Best Buy one day and I saw, I edited on Premiere, and I saw a box for Premiere that said, the tagline was, make your own movies at home. I never even knew that was even possible. I was just editing with a camcorder and a VCR back in those days, you know what I mean? And so I just didn't know it existed. So for today to have all the technology, especially with the phones and the people that are creating their Instagram and TikTok, and I mean the kids here right now, my daughter, the videos that she makes, I wasn't making those until I was like, I don't know, 30. So it's like, if you have a phone nowadays, even homeless people have phones, you know what I mean? And I think that there should be really no excuse for people to try to create something, anything that you make, especially from the heart, someone's going to watch it. Someone's going to enjoy it. Show it to your family, show it to your friends. And I tell people all the time, you just need one person to like it. And that will be enough for you to, make the next one or do something better or do something bigger. And, I think that with everything that we have now, there's content everywhere, and you just have to keep pushing and keep making it. And, it's everybody has a dream, and everybody has a passion, and I think that they just got to get up and do it. You know what I mean? And with the times that we're facing right now, it's obviously it's a complete, it's very tragic, and and people and going through tough times, but at the same time, it's the perfect time for you to reflect and see, is this what I really want to do? What can I do differently? What can I learn? You know, and again, the learning process. You just have to be willing to. I mean, acting is really the only thing that I had ever loved. I didn't even know I was going to do the camera stuff and the lighting and everything like that. And growing up, I didn't know Carlos was probably one of the first. You, Carlos, were probably one of the first filmmakers I met in El Paso at the time. And so that's kind of when it started. When I'm like, oh, you know what? Hey, there's someone else out there who's doing that. So let me keep going. And eventually you will find people and other filmmakers and actors that you can collaborate with. And you're as much as we feel alone sometimes, we're never alone. And it's very hard to do something alone. So just put yourself out there. That's the thing. Put yourself out there. It doesn't matter. Everybody's putting their pictures and everything on social media. It's a perfect place to show your stuff. And once you believe yourself, then everybody else will.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, Chris, and just let the panel and the attendees know. Yeah, Chris was one of the first filmmakers I worked with. I did my very, very, very first feature when I was still a student at UT Austin, called Santos. I did it here in El Paso, and yeah, Chris was my actor in it. But then I thought what was really great too, Chris, was that after I went back to finish school, you worked on Where One Stands, and
Sure.
and I like the fact that coming off of our movie that led you to make your movie, and I thought that was really, really great.
Well,
And
what I saw was, when we did Santos, again, I was in that mentality of, I had a home video camera, and I'm just going to make with, whatever, like there was nothing else to learn. It's like I had a camera, that's all I needed. But when I met you and, you actually, you were into sound and lighting and things like that, that's kind of what opened my eyes to like, oh, wow, like there's more to learn. So then I literally scrapped everything that I was working on and, turned around and started learning, what I could, and, went to Home Depot and bought some, work lights or whatever. And just, I mean, anything that can, I guess, like I said, it's just that learning part of it. And you start testing, but movies is really what my education was, watching your favorite scene and saying, hey, can I do something like that? Can I try to light something like that? How did they do that? I'm always the guy to watch all the behind the scenes on everything. And that's what happened. It was when Santos came out. And when I saw that there was so many other people, you and your brother and Oscar and everybody who was so into it, it just like, it blew my mind. And I thought, you know what, I want to make mine, bigger. I want to do something bigger than what I've done in the past. And that's always been the goal every time, is just to try and whatever you make or create, you gotta keep going. You gotta keep getting bigger, as you go, and not bigger like, oh my God, I'm, not like that, nothing like, not to sound cocky or nothing like that, but more like just bigger inside, knowing that you perfected something, knowing that you did something better that you couldn't do before. And, just thinking big every single time. Like, it's never good to think, oh, well, you know what, I can't do this because we don't have the money. There's always a way. There's always a friend. Being from El Paso, I still feel like El Paso is a very much handshake type of town. And, you might end up doing a lot of favors, which I did, but I mean, that's okay. I mean, you're helping other people, and eventually they're going to help you, and, you can help yourself.
yeah, and actually, James, I kind of want to go to you now, because that's kind of what happened with you as well. You did Brooklyn Unemployed, just you and your buddy, but then for your second feature, you pretty much worked with El Paso Juarez crew members, actors, talent, you name it. How did that feel? Just kind of, putting that whole team together.
Yeah, it was definitely, as Chris was saying, it was a challenge, because when I first moved back here, I didn't know anybody who made films. So it was a slow process of just finding people that were interested in the same kind of films, that were also making films. And I think it because the community is so close, the film community here is so intimate and small. Once, the train starts going, and like, as you said, you start making the feature film, you start putting things out there, you start having auditions, it kind of just snowballs, and people start realize they got contacting you and be like, hey, you're making a feature. I know this person, I know that person. And then pretty soon just the network webs out and you kind of get everybody involved. And yeah, I mean, it was a slow process. It did happen over about the year of pre-production. And everything kind of snapped and came together really quick because there's a lot of people we were talking with, a lot of people interested in the film, to work on the film. At the time too, we were reaching out to, because I didn't know anybody here. I had cast out of New York, I had cast out of LA, I had a DP out of LA. So everything was kind of done outside of El Paso. And, because of actual financial stuff, like money that fell through and we couldn't afford this, we couldn't afford that. So we honed in on El Paso. And that's when that sort of happened and started meeting everybody. And once that was locked into place, it was like 2 weeks before we started shooting. We had all the crew, we had all the cast. We were binational, which was really cool. I was kind of proud of that because, we were making a film in the border city with just kind of in the same way that just it is to live here, the osmosis between Juarez and El Paso. People live over there, they work over here, and it's just like this fluid thing. And it was right at the time when everything was going on with the border wall we were shooting. So it was just kind of like, oh no, that's not true. This is how we work together. This is how we are. This is what it's like. So yeah, I was kind of proud about that. But yeah. I mean, finding cast and crew is difficult, but once you do, you have those connects, and then it goes from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like Chris said, this is very a very intimate community, not just with filmmakers, but with actors too. And Anthony, that's kind of what I wanted to segue to you. Working with you on Paranoid Flux and then a little bit on Cut the Tech, I feel like one thing you've really been good at is assembling a lot of El Paso acting talent. I know for like crew, there were times where on Paranoid Flux, it was just me and you, I was just doing sound, you were doing camera, and it was the crew members there. As the crew members there. And then for actors though, they're always there. They know it's a small thing, but I feel like El Paso actors have always been very accommodating and very faithful to filmmakers. So can you touch a little bit about that regarding Paranoid Flux and Cut the Tech?
Well, yeah, I mean, Paranoid Flux, like you said, it was just me operating the two cameras. And, when I was editing it on certain cameras, I looked like a madman because I was just, okay, I got to record, everyone ready. And I was just kind of, so I knew on the second feature, I told myself, I'm going to bring in a cinematographer, an assistant camera operator, because, I don't want to be stressed out. So in Paranoid Flux, I was stressed out, and Cut the Tech, I was not. I had AD, assistant director, Jason Carranza, and so he's a really good AD here in El Paso, and so it having a team is really good because there comes a point where like you could do everything yourself. But if you want to progress as a filmmaker, you need to kind of let go of the idea of like, I can't always shoot the film, or I can't always edit the film, or I can't always score the film. So like for me, as I progress in my projects, the only thing that I'm going to be doing is just producing, writing, and directing. I'll have the cinematographer, the editor, the sound person, sound mixer, all that stuff. But going back to, I guess, the resources and everything and beginning as a filmmaker, I would really recommend, that beginner filmmaker, just do everything yourself. Like do a short film, do as many as you can. Then you'll find out what part of filmmaking you like. You might think I like the directing. But then as you progress, it's like, oh, I like the producing, or, oh, I like the camera, or I like the sound, or, oh, I like just the logistics of it. So that's my advice is, just go on there and do 3 short films, everything by yourself. And then obviously actors, use your friends, family, and then just kind of progress from there. And that's how I did it. I think all of us started off using our friends, family members. And then it's like levels, right? For Cut the Tech, it's like, all right, who can I get? I did a casting call with the help of Jason Carranza, and I'm so grateful that the El Paso actors, they want to help, they want to be in the films, And that kind of gives you energy too, because imagine if you had no one show up and there was no interest. I think it'd be a different story. But I really got to thank all the El Paso actors here, and even Las Cruces actors too, because I had Las Cruces actors in Cut the Tech, and also in Paranoid Flux. And so I think the beauty of El Paso is you have Las Cruces and you have Juarez. It's like the three clusters, and there's so much resources here, and you gotta find it. You need to network. You kind of can't be shy. You just have to put yourself out there. And that's my advice again for filmmakers starting out. You just have to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. Don't make mistakes. I still make mistakes. And you just got to keep doing it. And it's like anything, like a craft. The more you do, the better you get with it. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, yeah, and that does. And I mean, that's actually one of the big reasons I started the El Paso Film Festival in 2018. It's, I was doing the local flavor at Plaza Classic, but filmmakers were just getting better and better, and I love that everybody was meeting, networking, collaborating, that now there's a Beacon Film Festival for everybody, and not just to you guys too, but any El Paso filmmakers that have left us for other cities. I always try to bring them back, because it's always great to have you guys network and meet new people. I've seen the magic happen so many times where someone has a film in the festival, then they meet other filmmakers, and then next year they've all collaborated and done another film together. And it's like a beautiful thing when you see these things come to fruition.
Along those lines, Carl, I'm going to interject you a little bit. And so I am going to I'm going to sort of give you props here, because I was involved with the local flavor. I'd submitted a music video to that local flavor of the Plaza Classic that you're talking about. And I was so impressed with everyone else's work that was involved with that. I was just blown away with the local talent, right? And then to know that you had the insight to say, hey, listen, it's time that we can spin this off into El Paso's own film festival. And then the way that you've put it together, like I mentioned to you when I interviewed you, I was just so impressed with the program and the way you've adapted now under these strange circumstances. Kudos to you, man. And we're all very happy to have you as a resource as filmmakers, and I think just as a community, to be honest with you.
No, thank you. And that's been, I think, the one heartbreaking thing. We had such a high last year. I seen everybody at the parties, having fun, having Robert Rodriguez there. I was like, all right, we can go nowhere but up, and then the pandemic happens, but still, it was very much, I was very, okay, how do I not let this die? There's got to be a way to still get people together, even if it is virtually, to just, talk about their work. And I kind of feel like I did get lucky, because people kept making their work. You guys all made fantastic films that are in the festival. And and the big decision too was, trying to see the big picture of, okay, in October, how are people going to be? Do I sell digital tickets? Do I make it free? And I'm kind of glad I went with, let's just make it free so everyone can access it, have fun, watch some great movies, and stay safe and healthy in their homes. Because the big thing I want is, hopefully, and I'm really praying for this, hopefully by 2021 we can all come back, because I know a lot of us have a lot of pent up partying that we need to do. So I'm really hoping that for El Paso Film Festival 2021, I'm hoping things will slowly get back together, and hopefully by 2022, the pandemic will be a thing of the past. We'll be back and hugging each other, handshakes, telling everyone like, oh, I loved your movie, and everything in person. So but Robert, what keeps me going is that filmmakers are still out there, and El Paso filmmakers are still out there making movies. So I'm hoping that the festival inspires them to create more content, so that they can continue to be great artists.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
That's
And
awesome.
Carlos, listen, you referenced the pandemic, and as you know, I make my living not by being a filmmaker. That was squashed many years ago, but by being in the news. So I am getting some urgent messages here about looming deadline regarding the pandemic, so I'm going to have to bow out if that's okay.
No problem.
Because,
you are a journalist too, so
yeah. So yeah, KFox 14 called, so we've got to answer that deadline. And again, I just appreciated being on the panel and meeting all of you guys. And congrats on all your work. And
thank you, Robert.
I just can't say enough about the local film community, really.
Thank you. You too. And it's never too late if you want to continue making films.
Very true. Yeah, we hope to see
more
another.
from you.
We hope to see another film from you, Robert, next year.
Well,
I want to see the
an
first
inspiring
films.
bunch. You're all an inspiring bunch. Thank you,
All
guys.
right, take care, Robert.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, guys. So, as you all know, Robert had to take off. Urgent messages, I'm sure. That's the other thing, too. Everyone, please stay safe and healthy. Binge watch the El Paso Film Festival all over again if you can this weekend. You know, it's a great way to just stay indoors and be safe. So we got about 10 minutes left in our panel. I want to go ahead and also open it up to anyone on in our Zoom or on Facebook. I see plenty of comments here, so I'm trying to see if there's any questions. But otherwise, let me see. I'm trying to figure out here how to end the panel, but in a really, really fun way. Oh, yeah, I know what I can ask. I know all you guys just finished your feature films and they're playing it, in our Roku, Apple, and Fire TV apps, but what comes next? So I'll start with Chris. Chris, is Save Me 2 on the horizon, or are you going to work on something completely different?
Well, I've quarantined. The whole pandemic inspired me to. I had already had the next project in mind, so I'm actually going to be collaborating with some new people, and we already have that scheduled and set. Of course, if the pandemic is better or resolved, so we planned it for next year. Save Me itself, it began as a series, and then I just, because of the conditions that I had, basically what I want to do, it's a movie, but I want to still treat it like if it's kind of a pilot, because I think it has potential to either have a sequel or to, be a new series. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. And right now I'm already going to be submitting to a few other festivals next week. And, but for right now, man, I think, like I said, I'm just really, reflecting and kind of going back and trying to see what I can do better and learn and watch everybody else. But the biggest thing that I've learned, if I can just give a quick shout out, is that, for Save Me, most of it, I did have a couple of friends helping me, but for the most part, I was alone. And towards the end, because, I like to act and I was in the movie, I had, different people helping me, run the camera and things. But I met two guys towards the end, and they have a film right now in the El Paso Film Festival called De La Luz. It's a short film, and it's by Tony and Alfonso. And you know what? They're a terrific. I really encourage people to go watch their film, because they're a really super talented, team. And to see two guys, I'm always one, and to see two, always working together, it was awesome. So they came in towards the end of Save Me and helped me with my last minute scenes, and it was really a big help. And it's just, again, there are people out there that enjoy what you do or enjoy what they do, and when you come together and when you find other people, it really helps, and it does make your project a lot better. So I guess the big thing for me, or the next, was to open up and collaborate. I'm used to being alone a lot, and I wanted to kind of branch out and see, okay, well, what if I did get someone just to do the shooting, or just to do the sound, or just to, so that's the new experience that I'll be looking forward to in 2021 is collaboration.
Great. And Anthony, how about you? Well, are you already writing your next feature?
Yes, right now I'm just I'm getting research, but my next project it's going to be a Western. I want to challenge myself. I was very inspired by a local filmmaker, Robert Town. He's made a lot of Westerns, and I'm like, oh, okay, I want to make one too. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Very cool. Very
Awesome.
cool. James, how about you? I know you literally just finished I See a Darkness this year. So, but have you had a chance to write anything new? I know that's also another thing that, that the pandemic has brought, is that since we all can't be out there filming or doing other projects, people have been focusing on the writing. I mean, I wrote something, I don't know if it's any good, but it's one of those, hey, one day I'm going to film this. But yeah, what are you up to these days?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the pandemic did give some opportunity to relax, reflect. It happened right after we finished I See a Darkness. Literally the next week after wrapping our sound design was quarantine. It was lockdown. So I took that time, and after about a month of just kind of like, seeing the situation, what was happening, realized it was going to go on for a little while, sat down and wrote another feature. So that's definitely going to be the next feature I wish to make. It's a long road. It's that process again. So it's just early development. So, there's a couple of drafts of the feature. We'll see what happens as far as, how COVID plays out, how the film industry plays out, see if I can reach out to people, get people interested, things like that. So yeah, it's going to be that road all over again of getting contacts and getting the ball rolling. Working with a lot of the same crew. Obviously, I would like to, I'd like to get a larger budget this time. I'd like to have all of the positions filled this time. We had a few that were not filled in the last film. So that would be nice. So there's that. And then I do have, by the end of this year, I'm going to be doing a short film, which we won a grant for the local filmmakers from MCAD. And so we're going to be fulfilling that. So as soon as we can kind of figure out when it's safe to shoot, probably early next year, I just kind of want to take some time and develop it a little bit further. And then we'll be doing that short. But yeah, that's about all I have.
Yeah, and that's one thing I can tell all you guys out there. If you are gonna, do any short films, remember to just stay safe and healthy. Always wear your masks. Always sanitize your hands. Wash your hands. All that kind of stuff. Whatever you can do to slow the curve, because I know the other tough thing is that a lot of films or movies have been pushed to next summer. No one's really making anything right now, and we as filmmakers are trying to fill that void of content by making new films. So yeah, just remember to stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Always be respectful of everyone. Don't wear a chin diaper over your nose. But I just want to thank you guys, again for coming together and being a part of this panel. And I'm hoping that by having you guys on here, you guys inspire other El Paso filmmakers to move forward with their feature films or even short films as well. And I'm really hoping to see what sort of new things everyone will have for 2021. So thank you guys for coming out.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That concludes our El Paso Filmmaker panel here with the El Paso Film Festival. Tune in tomorrow. We have the El Paso Actors panel. And again, another great local resource are the talent that we all put in front of the camera. So please tune into that one so you can meet a lot of other people that are here in the borderland, and for some tips, tricks, and great way to figure out how we're all going to move forward. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Stay safe, stay healthy. Don't forget to watch the final weekend of our film festival on Roku, Apple, and Fire TV. Thanks so much, guys.